What's up, guys? It's Jared from Carpe Diem, and today we're going to talk about one of the most meaningful, insightful gifts that you can give somebody to show them that you care. We're in the business of storytelling. With any tabletop role-playing game, we're all collaboratively writing a story that takes all kinds of twists and turns with props and aids and all the things that make it great. So since we're telling a story, what better gift to give someone than a story? Here's a book that I printed off and created by myself for one of my players. Today we'll walk through the quick, easy, and incredibly affordable way that you can show somebody that you care with investment of time. So last year, my D&D group, we had a Secret Santa where you pick names out of a hat and that person that you get is the one that you get to get a gift for. Now, of course, it's a surprise on the gift day and nobody knows who it is. This particular player that I drew, he's one that's really invested in the story that we were telling, particularly in his Warforged character background. Now, he's the kind of person that if he wants something, he's going to buy it. So anything I would purchase for him really wouldn't have the same effect. And the last thing that this dice addict needed was another fail from some chance cube made out of a really weird material. So I wanted to get him something unique, something as kind of a thanks for being so attentive and so involved in the campaign and in the storytelling process. Now, he played a Warforged in my last campaign, which is a really interesting choice because of the theme that was surrounding the Warforged. Check the description below for the last video, which talks a little bit more about themes. Now, there was a lot of lore and a lot of history and a lot of in-game documents that I threw at him and that I'd already written for his character. So I figured a really cool gift would be a physically written account of the impact that he had on the history of our campaign world. So looking into that, I was really surprised at how inexpensive it was, and the biggest investment that I could give was time. So let's get started. I've got 7 easy steps how you can make your own book for somebody that you care about. Alright, the first step is going to be picking your subject. Now, the subject that I picked was particular to this player. If I had given it to somebody else, it wouldn't have meant quite as much. For other players, I would have chosen something different. Cool, so if you're a player, try some of these ideas. You can do a character portfolio. Really shake up the way that you present your backstory to other people. You can have your character sheet info, you can have personality traits, you can really flesh out who you are playing in a cool specialized book. If you're a magic-wielding character, maybe you could get a list of the spells and put all those in a book and make your own definitions and images. That'd be kind of cool. You could also do, if you're later on in your campaign, a quest or trophy room, where it's a compendium of all the impacts that you've had on the story, of all the achievements and accomplishments that you've made along the way. Now, if you're a DM, there's a lot of really good ideas you can give to your players. One good idea would be to create a comic book of a particularly memorable part of their adventure. Copilot creates some really cool 4-panel comics that you can just fill in the text with. There's a lot of variety to that, and it's a really cool output. Looks like you put a lot of time into something when it's pretty easy. You could do a monster manual with misconceptions about certain monsters, maybe at the beginning of a campaign. That could really help cut down metagaming ideas like all vampires suck blood, all trolls are damaged by fire. It's not metagaming if you have it in a book that belongs to almost everybody in the campaign setting. You could also do a travel brochure to introduce a new location. Welcome to sunny Narnia, with tidbits and little bits of information and travel, maybe even some questline hooks for a particular location. Do you have an NPC that some of your players have fallen in love with? What a great way to flesh out their backstory than to give them a biography. Give it lots and lots of details that are impacted by the setting, by their backstory, by the events going on, and then lead it up to the point where they meet the party and their hopes and dreams for that, and maybe even what they think about each player. Also, if you need to lay down some really cool plot hooks, one way you could do this is kind of make a version of the Grimm Brothers fairy tales, where you create fairy tales of your own world. Create a series of myths and things for players to reference. Maybe it's a secret weakness of a monster, or maybe there's the solution of a puzzle they may run into. What a great way to kind of have that right in front of the characters as they need it and have them puzzle that out and figure it out. And then finally, this is just for anybody who might be interested, but do like a world map and travel log. This could be a collaborative project where the players and the DMs all sketched and document the world as they experience it together, adding information about their personal encounters, locations, monsters that they encounter. That's the word. If you're really into homebrewing, maybe a personalized campaign monster bestiary that has all of the different weird, wild things that you're cooking up. And then finally, one that's pretty easy, especially at the end of a campaign, is do like a quote book of legends. Anything that was funny or memorable moments that are in there, just stash them all together and make it illustrated and make it look good and organized, and then hand that out to all your players. There are a ton of ideas that are out there. Take inspiration from anywhere. But the most important thing is knowing the person that you're giving it to. Will this book have the biggest effect and impact on them? Cool. Step 2. The next step is creating an outline. Decide what your chapters are going to look like. The chapters of an autobiography will look drastically different than the chapters of a story or a fable. For me, I almost went through a scientific journal. My idea was to think of maybe an 18th century explorer and how they would document things by their own hand in notebooks. There are a lot of outlines available online, and if you're unsure or if you have a really weird specific topic, just ask ChatGPT. It's really good at helping you outline your ideas and organize things. Again, link below. Step 3. Get to writing. Start getting those ideas down. If you're not a good and prolific writer, if you haven't been practicing this for years on end, if you weren't the best student in middle school, that's okay. A really good way to do this is to just feed ChatGPT your rambling ideas, whatever concepts or ideas. It could be out of order, it could be just scraps of notes, it could be segments, it doesn't matter. Give it to ChatGPT and it does a really good job of helping organize those. I would recommend doing it one chapter at a time because ChatGPT doesn't have really long-term memory at this point. Yeah, feed it all in there. NPC summaries, character backstories, all of that stuff. Then ask ChatGPT to create the first chapter of your story. Read it over, correct it, add, replace as needed, and move on to the next chapter. I would recommend copying and pasting these finalized chapters into a Word document or Google for ease of use later. For me, I also added a couple of things. I added a foreword and a personal note at the beginning. These are completely optional, but I've got it down below in case you want to look at it. Now, here's where you really start to get the sizzle with the steak. Step number 4, we're going to add some aesthetic. Now, you can have drawings, you can have illustrations, you can have designs, you can have maps, you name it. The best way to do this is, again, with AI. If you have Midjourney, which it requires a subscription, man, that's the way to go. It's hard to beat. However, if you don't and you want to go the free route, that's absolutely fine. However, I really wanted my book to look like it was hand-drawn, like it's the journal of an 18th century explorer, as if it were written down before they had like the printing press available. For this, I actually found that Copilot did a much better job with DALL-E 3 making the black and white hand-drawn looking images that I wanted. I asked for hand-drawn black and white sketch images with white space around it to help it blend into the page. It did a really good job. Now I used full pages in between the different chapters, and then I tried to have at least 2 or 3 images per page to really help bring it to life. This also makes a shorter chapter really stretch out into a much lengthier novel. And so while you're in there trying to figure out what prompts to develop, there's a golden rule that exists in broadcast production. Say dog, see dog. Every time a location, a culture, etc. is mentioned, I will drop that into Copilot and then choose from the images there. They don't have to be perfect. AI images have all kinds of weird things going on with them, so don't sweat it if it's not 100% accurate. Step 5. Now it's time to format. Some of you may find this the most challenging step, and that's okay. It's a big learning curve. I did mine in Adobe Illustrator because that's what I'm most familiar with. But really, Canva is an excellent choice. You can even do it in Google Docs. That's a free option as well. Now, I mentioned this before, but as I add in the various images, it does change the length of the text on each page. So here's what I did. So here's a copy of the document that I sent out to my player. You can see it's pretty extensive and there's a lot that goes to it. You can do this entire project in Word or Docs, but I prefer to do something else. So what I would do is I would start off, let's just pretend like we're using this information here for this chapter. So I would go to my final pages and notice how I name my pages. So for my first chapter, I'd be 1.0. Second chapter would be 2.0 because I don't know how many pages would be in between because the text shifts so much. So my first pages are typically full page images. They look like this. It's a good way to transition between each chapter, all that stuff. So here's my first page. Let's pretend like I am making my new text box here. Okay, I'm going to paste that in there. Awesome. Okay. Now this looks pretty good and I would format it a little bit more, but let's say I want to add an image to this to make it a little bit more exciting. Let's pretend like it's this boat image here. So I would take this boat image and I will trim it down. And when I put it right here, there's an issue with this boat image. So what I would do is I would take this and I would be able to either, there's a couple of ways you can do this. I would size it down, but you see when I size it down, I lose a lot of that text. So when I go here, let's pretend like this is good. I would hit enter. And I like this. So I'm going to take the rest of this, I'll copy it, and then I'll do a new page and I'll paste it at the top here. Now I know that this was shown on my last page, so I'll just select everything that's visible, hit delete, and then there's the rest of the page, and I can just continue to work on it this way. Now this time I want to put an image over here. This time let's do this beautiful heart image. So you drop this image down and you notice that it covers this up. Well, there's a really easy way, especially in Illustrator, to overcome this. All you do is just click on this, go up to Objects, go down to Text Wrap, and then Make. And when you do that, the objects go around this. Now if it's circular, it looks a little bit different, but since this is a square object, you can notice that when I move this around, it adjusts the text as necessary. You can play with the individual settings, but I like this. So I'm going to keep this right here and pretend like that's a good chapter. Awesome. But as you go through the rest of these, you'll see that I've taken the time to make sure that they have at least 2 paragraphs on each page. There is an image at least centralized or somewhere else, and every image usually has a handwritten annotation here to make it look a little bit more authentic, a little bit more written. You'll also notice that I have 0 for the cover, 0.0 for the forward. Now when I did this, I had forward 1, but then I wanted another forward and a glossary. So the great thing about naming them this way is that if I want something to go ahead of that, I can just put it as 0.01. I can just make the number a little bit smaller. You'll see that it goes this entire way. I've included all of the page and the final product below, so that way you want to check it out, see what I did, play with it a little bit. This is free for you to use, no problem. Just check out the description. Step 6. Upload it. There are tons of great ways to publish these online and get them shipped directly to you or to the person who's receiving. Lulu.com is a great place to make your book feel like it's been published. They have a great selection of covers, of finishes, of paperweight. I would really recommend looking through this. However, for me, of course, I procrastinated and I didn't get this done in time for the shipping to arrive. So what I did is I found the nearest Staples. I uploaded the images online and I had them bind the whole thing the same day. It wasn't terribly expensive printing off 2 of these copies. Of course, I kept one for myself for about 30 bucks. And finally, my favorite step, hand it out, profit. This is where you get to give the gift and get ready for some tears of joy, some amazement, and some oohs and ahs from the other players, maybe some jealousy. Now, next time I do this, I'll certainly add some spaces, just some blank spaces in there where I could probably go back in and hand write a few notes, or maybe even leave notes for the players to leave in. But overall, this is kind of the whole process. Creating your own hard copy of whatever story you're trying to produce is easier than ever with all of these free tools that are on offer out there. Find some free graphic editing software like Canva, use your AI text and image generations like Copilot, and you've got a ton of printing options that would help you develop and create this intimate, really meaningful gift. And this doesn't have to be exclusive to D&D. You could give a gift to a loved one, to a teacher, a coworker, just about anybody that you know well enough to create something like this. So let me know in the comments, who's somebody that you would write a book about? So don't forget to like and subscribe, or go ahead and share the link to somebody to give a big hint that you might want a book for your birthday. And that wraps it up. I'm Jared from Carpe Diem telling you to never stop building.